This is Matt Rosen, and this is The Grit Mindset with me, your host, Matt Rosen. The mission of The Grit Mindset is to inspire and empower our listeners by delving deep into the journeys of those who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger. Through authentic conversations, we uncover the mindsets, strategies, and lessons that have propelled these individuals to overcome adversity and achieve success. My aim is to provide actionable insights and real-world advice to help our listeners cultivate their own grit and navigate their personal and professional lives with confidence and resilience. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of The Grit Mindset. I'm your host, Matt Rosen. Glad to finally be back. The storm has cleared. There's no more ice or snow on the roads that shut Dallas down for a good week. Here with me today, I have a friend, Mike Rose. He is a speaker, a leadership coach, and an author. We'll talk about his new book in a second. But Mike, thanks for coming on The Grit Mindset.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here.
So to get started, thank you for the book, by the way. It's ROE Powers ROI. You want to tell us a little bit about your book and what you're doing these days?
Yeah, sure. So return on energy has always been kind of my concept, and launched the framework, started building the framework in 2007 when I was running the digital marketing agency. And that was my 10 years in business in 2007. And I never really considered myself a natural leader, so I felt like I needed some type of framework if we were really going to grow. So I put this framework together and used it from 2007 to 2011, and it was game-changing. It really impacted our culture. It impacted a lot of things in our business, to include our clients. But really, I have to give credit to my wife, who said, "Okay, you have to just write the book, get all those voices out of your head, and just get it out on paper." And I did. So I published the book in 2012, and that was always going to be my what's next, having built, grow, scaled, and exited a business, to then use this framework to help other people do the same.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We'll definitely, as we talk through the story, come back to what does return on energy mean. Yeah. But so you had a pretty successful career as an entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit about, some of your early upbringing. What caused you to kind of go into business for yourself?
Yeah. It's funny. I just told the story the other day that I reflect on this. I was 7 years old, and I would stop cars in front of the house and charge them a toll to go by.
Where was this?
This was actually in Texas, where I was born. But then the entrepreneur spirit continued. I think I got just money out of just, "You're so cute." So 10 cents a car, and it worked pretty well until my parents found out. But then we moved to Pennsylvania, where my dad was from, and that's really from first grade on, second grade on is where I grew up there. And it's a very entrepreneur community, 2,500 people in this very small town. My dad owned a business. My parents both owned a business.
What kind of business?
It was an Italian deli.
Okay.
So I grew up in this little Italian deli, and doing my first job was stocking the candy rack, and ordering the supplies, stocking the candy rack. And I joke and say that I got fired from my first job because I think I was eating all the profits. So I got promoted to cash register. So put me in the cash business. So I don't know if that was better or worse. But just grew up in an entrepreneur family, and always had side gigs going on, and then little businesses here and there. And I bought my first one at 18. This was a legitimate business, and it just never really looked back from there.
Yeah. So just tell us about some of those side hustles. I started as a paper boy, lifeguard, we have all sorts of things. So curious to hear some of the early jobs you had to hold.
Yeah. So one of them was every July 4th, all my friends wanted to shoot off fireworks, right? Yeah. And for some reason, they drank beer and shut off fireworks. So that's a whole nother story.
Good combination.
Yeah, put those two together. So what I would do is, in drinking age in Pennsylvania was 21, and this is high schoolish. And I would drive to Ohio, fill the trunk of my car with fireworks and booze, and then drive back, and I would sell them to all my friends. And it became a routine. And so that was one. I had a car washing business. I'd work my dad's deli in the morning. All these people would come in from the glass plant. And then I had nothing to do in the afternoon. And I was always wanting to do something, stay busy, make money. And so I'd put a little sign on the cash register saying, $75 or $25 car washes, $75 wax, your car. And people would just say, "Here's my key. This is where it is." And small town, everybody knows everybody. So I'd go up, grab their car, wash it in the afternoon. So that was another hustle. But my first one really came at 18. There was two gentlemen that owned a gym in my parents' basement in the business, and they wanted to sell. So I went to my parents and said, "I want to buy their business." And he goes, "Well, go down to the bank and get a loan. I'm like, what? I don't even know what to do from that point. And he's like, go down to the bank, tell them what the story is, and I'll introduce you to them. And I did, and I got a $10,000 loan to buy this business. I wrote Gary a check for $5,000 and Ken a check for $5,000. And yeah, that was another side hustle. And I ended up selling that, I like to say, for a big return, because I sold it for $15,000 several years later, which allowed me to put myself through bartending school and buy an engagement ring. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then it just kept going from there.
So it sounds like your folks were a pretty big influence on you then?
Yeah, they were huge. I mean, they were really, really big for both positive and negative reasons. Positive, I mean, the support was just crazy. I mean, anything I wanted to do it. It's like I was halfway through college, my freshman year. I don't think I want to do this. We'll come pick you up. I mean, I want to buy this business. Do it. It was just constant and full support. Like, you can do anything. And to this day, it kind of like, I don't have a lot of fear in trying something new or starting something new, risky or not. It's just like, I feel like I have their support behind me. That's the upside. The downside is they would just say, do it. I believe in you. There wasn't a lot of really kind of tangible, like, watch out for this and watch out for that.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of mentoring behind it other than just full support. And that was just, in retrospect, it was a really, really wonderful way to grow up.
So you had to learn through the School of Hard Knocks. What were some lessons 100%. From the early days you can share?
Well, when I eventually graduated high school, and then after I bought that business, I sold it, I realized that I really I don't want to be an entrepreneur moving forward. That's not my life. And one of the reasons, I think, was because I saw how hard my parents worked in their business for just little to no return. They had a great product. People 30 years later still talk about their deli and their product. I actually went home for the first time, back to Pennsylvania for the first time 2 Julys ago, the infamous July 4ths. and people were still looking for hookups for beer
and fireworks in Texas.
Exactly. And I went back, and man, it's like, I hate even saying this, but it was like being a celebrity in the town. I mean, it was just like people were stalking me on the street, stalking me in the restaurants. It was just like, it was so incredible to see their legacy, not mine, but their legacy live on through the town. And are you moving back? Are you going to start the deli up? Are you going to make those pizza rolls? It was wild. And now I'm committed to go back much more frequently. Matter of fact, we're going back for high school reunion in July this year again. So that's kind of cool. But really, I just saw how hard they worked for such little return that I decided, just when we moved to Texas and after I got in-state tuition qualification, I did a 180. I went in and I was going to be pre-med. I was going to go to medical school. And from there, I graduated with degrees in chemistry and biochemistry. And that lasted for a little bit until I decided that, hey, I think this E thing's for me. This E gene kicked in, as I call it, the entrepreneur gene. And then I started the next thing.
What caused you to back away from the whole medical path?
I learned that my wife at the time, not my wife today, I was living somebody else's dream. I was living somebody who wanted me to be a quote unquote professional, and doctor, lawyer, whatever. And I mean, I make my own choices and did, but I started to learn that I'm living somebody else's dream. I'm not living my dream. And when somebody says, who is a professional, says, hey, we're going to this party, what do I tell people you do? I say, well, I'm an entrepreneur. Well, I don't know what that means. You know what I mean? I need something, essentially, I'll paraphrase, I need something sexier than that. You know what I mean? So as soon as I kind of figured out that, hey, I need to do what makes me happy, not what serve other people's needs or what makes them happy, then I dropped out of law school at the time. I resigned from Alcon Laboratories, which is a really great career, and started the business, and it was all over from there.
I am pre-med as well. Did not get accepted in medical school. Probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, I'm married to a doctor. God bless doctors and lawyers, but that's not for me either.
That's your fix, right? Love it.
So you left Alcon, dropped out of law school. What was the business you started?
So we were working in a lab at Alcon Lab. So I was working in a lab every day and loved actually what I did. I love research. I love science. I love I love everything behind that. And that's followed me, the analytical way of thinking and solving problems. That's really served me really well over the years. But my second or third summer there, the CEO at the time called for corporate casual for 3 months in the summer. So people know how hot it gets in summer in Texas, and to not wear a shirt and tie in the lab with a lab coat was so foreign to the people who have been there for a long time. And I joke and say these scientists look like they came to work in the morning like they got dressed in the dark. I mean, they didn't match. So they didn't know what to do. Couldn't wear their white shirts with their ties. A lot still did because they didn't subscribe to corporate casual. But the point to that is I kind of saw a need starting to be developed. I'm like, I think more businesses are going to go corporate casual through the summer, but ultimately I think over time it's going to be a permanent thing. I think we're going to see left chest logos for the rest of our lives. And so I started an embroidery business only focusing on corporate left chest. And like what you're wearing right now, I see it today. And it's like, how many thread counts are in that? And what's the backing look like? And what's the... I just absolutely loved it. I mean, I jumped in it with both feet. I wanted to have full control. I owned the equipment. I did my own production, my own creative, my own sales, delivery, everything. Wow. And it was just, honestly, I was having the absolute best time of my life. And I couldn't start the business in my house at the time, so I started at my parents' house, technically in their backyard. They had a shed in the backyard. It was a 10 by 12 shed, and it was they called it the dog shed.
Do you even have AC in there?
No AC, no AC. That and the two big Akitas were living in it. So we kicked out the dogs, we carpeted it, spruced it up, put in AC in the window finally, and that's where I started. And long story short, when we ended up selling the business, in 22, we had a beautiful 10,000 square foot Class A office space, and there's 3 conference rooms, but one of those conference rooms was called Dog Shed, and it was actually designed to the same specs as the original, and that was always cool. People knew the story, and they really subscribed to it, and it really played a key role in kind of a homage to my parents and their support along the way to get to where we got. That's
awesome. So you went from embroidery, and you ultimately turned it into what? Marketing services, is that the right word for it?
So started that in 97, to date myself a little bit, 97. That didn't seem to be so long ago back in the day.
I know time flies.
But started that in 97, and my first big order was at Michael's Arts and Crafts store. Okay. I remember sitting in their corporate offices here in Irving, and they're saying, okay, you got the contract, start shipping supplies to the DCs. And I had to say, what is a DC? I didn't even know what a distribution center was. And they're like, oh no. But it was a great relationship.
They didn't pull the order.
Yeah, they didn't pull the order. And I just remember just closing my eyes before I opened the door to the dog shed, because I knew as soon as I opened the door, the fax machine was sitting there. And in the day, faxes used to come out in a continuous scroll, and there was just a continuous scroll on the floor, just full of orders. And I had a one-head embroidery machine. I was my only employee, and it was 7,104 stitches, 500 stitches per minute. So you can figure how long it takes to do 10,000 aprons. But we scaled from there. I should say grew from there. Got a 4-head, a 6-head, 18-head, and we continued to grow, and we were able to do more and more. But yeah, those early days were pretty wild, but fun. It was just, I didn't know what I didn't know. Yeah. Ignorance is bliss, and I was just having the time of my life.
Yeah. Any big challenges in those early days? Obviously, other than you're probably working around the clock.
Yeah. I mean, all the ingredients of grit has always been with me. So it's like I had that. I didn't need the enthusiasm and drive. I've always just had it, but you apply something that you're really excited about, it's on fire, and that was cool. The biggest thing, however, was my mom. I was the first one to go to college, much less graduate, but my mom was really, really smart, and she was always a bookkeeper, either for my dad or fractional for other people, and so she always managed my books. And so this is kind of leading into the financial side, is what I was not strong on at the time. And she would say, listen, your top line is really good. I mean, we're doing a lot of invoicing, but your receivables are growing. Where's the money?
Yeah.
And this is in the day when customers would write you a check, right? I'd stop by and get checks. But I just wasn't in for the finances. I was in it for the top line and for just taking care of business, clients. But I would say there might be some checks in my truck. You can go out and check. So she'd go through and she'd find 10,000 check here and a 2,000 check here and a 2,500 check. She goes, "This is your AR is literally in your truck." And so I got more sophisticated when it come to finances. But that later led to one of my biggest hurdles, obstacles, if you will, and that was. I can't be specific on this, but my CPA at the time was like, "Hey, you've got a really good business going here. I see you're working around the clock. You're growing year over year. You're getting more profitable. You need an investor." And I'm like, At that point, I started to get really burned out, and I'm like, that would be great. I could do X, Y, and Z. And my CPA invested in my business, and lesson, first and foremost. And it's not so much he invested in the business as much as I needed him because I didn't understand the financials. And long story short, there was that did not go well whatsoever. A lot of bad experiences from there. But I made the commitment after that all was cleaned up. I will never not be. I will always understand my financials moving forward. Yeah. And financial literacy was a major focus for me moving forward. And that's what I adopted personally. I really wanted to learn that. So when we did run a bigger business, then that wouldn't be something that could hurt us. Yeah.
What did you have to do to learn that? Did you go back to school, take a class, read a book?
I read a book. I mean, it was how to read a financial statement. Yeah. I mean, I call them quantum leaps in the business, and any quantum leap that we made in the business, and there was probably 3 quantum leaps, started from the basics. I mean, when I decide to get involved in something, I'm generally don't go too deep in the tactics of most things, but when I really subscribe to something, when I really commit to something, I will go super deep, and so I will go down to the X for dummies, start there, and then move my way up. Yeah. And so with that, it was just how to read a financial statement, and I self-taught myself. I had my mom. I was paying closer attention to what my mom was doing on the reconciliations. But long story short to that is finally meeting Jack Stack and Bo Burlingham, who co-authors of Great Game of Business, Bo with Finish Big and Small Giants, really getting into that community. Jack taught me a lot about this, and to the point where, fortunately, my new wife is very financially literate and has a very positive relationship with money. And her dad taught her how to balance the checkbook at 16 years old, and she had investments in her college, and just really sound. I mean, my father-in-law is really the most amazing person in the world. But with her support on coming together to say, not only do I want to learn financial literacy, but I want to teach it to as many people who will listen to, primarily the employees. So we adopted a financial literacy kind of program and built it technically on our own with the help of Bo and Jack and the great Game of Business community. And we became open book. And essentially what that means is we shared the entire financial statement down to net income with all the employees. Now, we didn't just share it, but we actually got to the point where everybody in the company, whether you were an intern or me and Nicole didn't have line item responsibility, but to the leadership team had line item responsibility on the P&L. So Nicole and I would set the budget for the year. Then they would manage the budget and reforecast literally on a weekly basis, every week through the entire year. So every Monday at 11 a.m. we had the huddle, and that was just instrumental to not only how well I slept, but the value we drove in the business. And it got to the point where Nicole and I weren't even in financial meetings anymore. The entire team managed it on their own. It was just incredible.
Well, it sounds like you've had a lot of great mentors that have helped you on 100%. This journey. You're on the grit mindset. At this point, I always ask everybody what you touched on a little earlier, but what does grit mean to you?
Yeah, I think if you were to ask Angela Ducksworth, the author of Grit, the foremost probably authority on it, she would say it's the passion and the perseverance to achieve a long-term goal, right? As EO Dallas president, entrepreneur organization Dallas president this year, my theme is grit, and so I wanted as many people coming in talking about grit as possible. And we couldn't get Angela. We tried, but we got her protege, Danny Southwick. And man, I tell you, he came in and kicked off the year, the EO chapter, Dallas chapter year on grit. And so he came in as Duckworth's protege talking about grit. And if you ask him, he would say the same thing as Angela, truly. But he takes it a step further and says, it's the disciplined ability to commit to something for a long-term goal. And I like that. I mean, it really speaks to me. But before Angela wrote the book and I met Danny and these things, I would always call it the it factor. And it's funny that there's it and grit, right? Yeah. So I would just somebody or something or somebody or a brand or myself, there's an it factor that we really can't define. So that's what I set out to define in the book. Great.
So you and Nicole had this company. It started with the Dog Shed Marketing Agency. Yeah. Talk about, kind of that partnership, that experience. Ultimately, you exited that business, but maybe share with us just a little bit of that journey.
Sure. Yeah. So in 2007 was 10 years in business for me. And that business was still going. I was doing well, despite the crazy ups and downs.
Yeah.
I kind of look at myself in 7 to 10 year increments, and big things have happened to me between 7 and 10 years. I can go back pretty much since birth. And so the 10-year mark was like, okay, things are going well, but I'm feeling like I'm losing my enthusiasm and drive. And that was confusing to me because I worked so hard to get where we were and things were going well. And yet I was losing my passion. And so that's in 2007, I told Nicole, I said, I want to start a new business. Let's keep this rolling. This is going good. But the day that this new business can support us and achieve the same results if the existing one is running, then we'll make a decision. And so I kind of experimented, doing the experiments that I'd like to do in this new professional services side. And so the original business was a product company, and I want to start a service business, and completely different ways to manage it and to run it. So I started Mojo Media Labs in 2007 and just tinkered with it for years. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't, until about 10 or 11 that it really is, okay, now we're really, we can see a future with this, because going the digital route back then was the logical thing to do. So when we came back together, and Nicole and I had a discussion like, okay, let's sell the original business. We ended up selling that in 2016. And that would allow both of us to focus full time on this new thing that I think was a proven entity. And then from 2016, in 2013, I told her we're going to sell in 2023, and we ended up selling 22.
Yeah, I think, as I shared in my last episode, what gets written down gets done. It sounds like you did a really good job of kind of setting those goals, working towards achieving them as you kind of phased out the product business, went in the service business. Any challenging times you had to go through in launching that?
Oh my gosh, yeah, so many. I mean, so many. But the first thing was a very good friend of mine, kind of, who's very successful today, pulled me aside and he goes, listen, a professional services firm is only as good as the people providing the service. And so that was like, in the old business, culture was important. People were certainly important, but it was more about spotlighting the customer, and taking care of the customer service was all external stuff. But in the services side, once we started to really tinker and figure this out, it was not about the clients, it was about the employees. And we abolished the word employees, by the way, and there's no real way to describe it in the real world, but other employees. We call them mojo makers.
I like it.
But employee insinuates a hierarchy, and I didn't want that. So we just started focusing on culture. And as soon as, our business plan was 4 words, it was happy people equal happy clients. And as long as we were taking care of the people, the clients stuff kind of took care of itself. So, Nicole and I also made the conscious decision to not be a subject matter expert in what we were doing. It was really important not to get sucked into the weeds of all the things digital can take you. But what we got really good at is building a culture, hiring good people who were experts.
Yeah.
So I could sit in front of a client and say, you know what, technically I don't know this. I can create the strategy. I can do the high level, big picture stuff. I can really understand your problems and the pains that you're going through. But the team can deliver on this. They can implement this. And that became just, I think, one of the big things, to not get pulled into the business, but be able to work more on than in, and eventually not even work in or on, but out. And that just continued to add value over the years.
Yeah. No, that's great. Again, similar mantra, which clients are king, take great care of your people.
100%.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's been in the professional services business the last 27 years. And yeah, it's true. If you have happy people, they'll deliver great results for your clients, and rinse, repeat.
Isn't that the truth? And if you don't,
yeah, then it goes the opposite direction really fast.
You can put a little sign, that little cross sign through the equal, so it doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So you and Nicole are out of that business, and now this is kind of your full-time gig is helping people with this return on energy. Tell us just a little bit about what that is and what that means to you. And
yeah. When I read grit, I think energy, honestly, and fortunately, we have such great technology available to us today, and this may not sound like great technology, but bear with me. So we have Kindles, right? And what's really, really nice about this is I can go into the best business books of all time, good to great, just leave one after the other. But what I can do is go in and actually search for the word. Like in good to great, energy was used, I think, 26 times.
Okay.
7, when friends influence people is like 32 times. But the thing is, when I go in and I'm looking at how these incredible minds are using the word energy, and it's not being used in a consistent way. Time, money, and effort, no problem. But it's time and energy and effort. It's inconsistently, and it hasn't been really defined, in my opinion. Now, there's definitely spiritual energy, physical energy, mental energy. That's a standard, and that's wonderful. But from a true get stuff done, be great, the energy just hasn't been defined. So that's my challenge. I want to define energy, and I want to be the one who's been able to maybe create something that has been helped us get to where we are. So the way I like to define energy is it's the enthusiasm and drive people feel when they have the opportunities and support to grow to their highest potential. And what I like to say is, we as leaders, entrepreneurs, we look at potential. We look at getting the company to its highest potential, or to people to their highest potential. But the problem is, potential is an outcome, and we can't control outcomes. We can't control business results. We can't control people development. But what we can control is the process. And Nick Saban says, don't focus on the score, focus on the process. You know what I mean? Do your job. And so kind of from that perspective, as the leader, as the employee, I am responsible for bringing the enthusiasm and drive to the office. And what the employer is responsible for is the opportunities and support. And so long as those two live in harmony, you can actually create workplace harmony, or create the culture that you want. So I tell people all the time that I've been really, really struggling for many years. I'm sure you do the same thing. Is this issue that happens between employee and employer, right? There's this discord. There's this gulf between employee and employer, and that's what I want to solve for. And our goal was always many goals, but one of the goals on the culture side is we called it brag at the bar. And we wanted our employees to brag at the bar. When they got done with work, we envisioned them going out with their friends and saying, I just worked for the most amazing place in the world. Yeah. And that's because we are providing the environment, the opportunities and support matched through their enthusiasm and drive. And to me, that's the definition of energy. If if you're listening to this, you can't see, but if I'm holding a coffee cup and it's sitting on the table, there's zero potential energy in that. It's at rest. But as soon as I raise the coffee cup higher and higher, I'm creating more potential energy. And I think that's what we're supposed to do as leaders, as entrepreneurs, is create the environment where not just the company, but the people in the company providing the service can grow to their highest potential. And that creates the momentum. And that's what the book is about.
Well, I'll definitely be reading this. Any quick tips on how, as leaders, we can create that energy for our employees?
Yeah, I think there's three primary ways, and I call them ways because it's the core of the book. And it's simple, but as we know, simple does not mean easy. But we made all these mistakes in the first business, but we did not make these mistakes in the second business because of return on energy. And the 3 ways are simply vision, strategy, and tactics, and really understanding how to stay in the lanes and the guardrails between the 3. And strategy and tactics is working in the business. Visionary is working on the business, and from a tactical perspective, that's where that's where the subject matter expert lives. And managers are way 2 thinkers, and they're managing a team of people to implement the plan. And we did not allow ourselves to fall into the expert trap, the way 3 thinking. The way we hired way 3, just brilliant people who are really, really good at what they did. But we also hired really good managers who love to create strategy and manage people, not do the work. Because if you're, as I say, a way 3 thinker sitting in a way 2 seat, if you're a subject matter expert sitting in a management seat, you're going to micromanage and not micro-mentor. So we just kind of broke down all these buzzwords and then create guardrails for people to where they can live in their unique ability and deliver the most value. We supported the heck out of them. We gave them tremendous opportunities, and that's what really kind of made it all work. And I remember we had rallies every year in January to kick off the year, and I asked a big team of people, like, do we really want to grow as a business? I mean, do we really want to grow? Because growth can be scary to certain people, and it was unanimous. People were like, yes, we want to grow. And I remember after that rally, I'm like, oh shit, we kind of really need to grow now. I was like, I got permission to kill almost, I was like, this is incredible, but we had to figure out how to grow. And the reason why they wanted to grow is because they wanted more opportunities. They had the support, but as a small business, it's really hard to give people opportunities for career path development. And we look back on all the interviews and all the interviews we did, and the number one thing that stood out is, I want career path development. So it's like, the way to do that is to grow and show people that we're going to be at this revenue or this head count over a period of 1, 3, 5 years. But then we had to get to work doing it. And we did that through organic growth, but also through acquisitions and inorganic as well.
Very cool. Well, looking forward to reading the book. And for our listeners out there, can't see the book that I'm holding up, but we'll post a link to it in the show notes. Well, we're running short on time here. Mike, thank you for coming on the show. Are there any closing thoughts or words of wisdom you can impart on our listeners?
Yeah, it's just, what's the it in grit, right? I mean, it's like, what's the it factor? I mean, you may have a different definition of what grit means to you, but you probably can define what grit means and why you are where you are in a good way. But we also know what got you here is not going to get you to where you want to go sometimes. But ultimately, I think the it factor or the grit to me is just, you have to emulate the behavior you expect. And that's bringing your own enthusiasm and drive every day. And as leaders or entrepreneurs, we have the fortune to control the things that employees can't, and that is creating the environment. And I think by creating the environment where opportunities and support thrive, is pretty special. So, and then if those 2 things can work in tandem, we'll create incredible potential for people. And that's ultimately what it's all about. I want all of our employees that we've had over the years to reflect back on their LinkedIn profile when they see the Mojo name and say, I'm proud of that. We did some cool things together. And I think that comes as a result of putting your people first and everything else second.
Well, that's awesome. And now you're teaching other entrepreneurs to do this. Well, thanks for coming on, sharing your story from toll booth operator to entrepreneur to a leader and author. You share some great wisdom with our audience, and always learn something new about every guest I have on, even the ones I've known for years. So thanks for coming on the show today. For our listeners out there, hopefully good takeaways from today's episode. And until next week, stay gritty out there.